Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Panel Pals, the comic book podcast for thinkers. We're your hosts, Jack Stewartson.
And Diane Hitchings.
Diane, how's it going? What's new?
Not much. It is currently raining. Yesterday I went skating and had to have a almost fight with an old man about how AI does not actually have any place in art. That was fun.
That's great. I'm glad that you should have actually fought him, though.
Well, okay, it was just skating. It wasn't hockey, so I can't, start an actual fight. And also, I don't want to fight a 60-year-old. That's mean. But I did just, kindly let him know that AI is, the antithesis to the artistic process, and it removes the humanity, and humanity is what makes art art. So maybe I changed someone's opinion? I don't know. We'll see.
I was just listening to a thing just before we started recording about a company that was scanning books for their AI whatever, but then they were also destroying them, and that's how they get away with copyright infringement because it's technically changing things. I'm so mad. I'm so mad all the time.
Yeah.
It sucks.
What a nice happy way to start the podcast.
What a great way to start our show.
Yay.
Speaking of transformative works of art, today we're going to be discussing the 2019 Peter Cannon Thunderbolt series. Because this is our technically inaugural episode in the Children of Watchmen sub-series here on Panel Pals.
Yeah.
Should we just chat briefly about what our thoughts on our Watchmen and how do we feel about comics in general, I guess? I don't know if there's a space for that. Do you have anything to add about Watchmen, Diane?
I mean, the first thing I was going to say about the comic for this week is, yeah, and the finale episode of last season when you were next season I'm going to talk about the spiritual successors to Watchmen and stuff. Didn't think it was going to be this literal.
Sometimes we get literal. Sometimes we get a little less literal.
Yeah. I was you know what? I think that even if he wouldn't have said that, I would have been is this
wait a minute.
From Watchmen? Wait a second. Yeah. So I think this one was probably one of the obvious ones, I assume.
This is, depending on if we do Doomsday Clock or not, I'm still kind of wrapping my mind around that. This is probably the most literal successor to Watchmen that we will cover.
Okay.
What did you think, just generally, about Peter Cannon Thunderbolt?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it had some interesting ideas in the way that it went about trying to portray itself, and also I've probably said this before. I kind of like it when things do a little callback to things that I like, and to be a little point, not when it's just makes the reference the entire joke, but kind of integrates what it's referencing into what it's doing. So I did have a little bit of fun being I wonder what part of Watchmen specifically this is getting a reference to, or being oh yeah, I see that one, blah blah blah. I guess that's a fun little side quest for reading this, but it was, as far as superhero comics go, not bad.
Okay, that's a good starting off point, I think.
Yeah.
We'll get into more of it as I finish my introduction. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Rearrange their faces and give them all another name. When considering the literary canon, it's inevitable that James Joyce's Ulysses comes up in conversation. Serialized between March 1918 and December 1920, in the Little Review before being published in full in 1922, much has been written of its 732 pages. Most apparent is how the book's general plot structure and characters are informed by Homer's Odyssey. T.S. Eliot says of Ulysses, Telemachus, Circe, and the rest of the Odyssean company, the noisy cave of Aeolus, gradually place themselves in the mind of the reader, rapidly or less rapidly, according as he is familiar or unfamiliar with Homer. These correspondents are part of Joyce's medievalism and are chiefly his own affair, a scaffold, a means of construction justified by the result and justifiable by its only. The result is a triumph in form, in balance, and main schema, while continuous, unweaving, and arabesque. Joyce boils down Odysseus' epic journey home to Ithaca, as well as the trials of Penelope and Telemachus, into a rather mundane yet ponderous afternoon jaunt through the early 20th century Dublin. Joyce's work is wholly original in vibe, however. This is because Ulysses, while borrowing Homer's basic structure and characters, is obviously not a mere retelling of the Odyssey. Joyce's work is equally informed by the socio-economic strife of the First World War, and addresses such. Leopold Bloom and Stephen Dedalus' misadventures feature quirks unique to Joyce. Stephen himself is borrowed from an earlier Joyce novel, Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. Moreover, Joyce heavily alludes to Shakespeare, and Hamlet in particular, in much of the novel's first half. This is neither to suggest Joyce is unoriginal, nor that Ulysses makes the Odyssey redundant. As Picasso says, good artists copy, great artists steal. Joyce's references to Homer equally elevates both works for further critical analysis, interweaving their messages and meanings to create a greater whole. These allusions enrich the text. It literally creates the canon. One without the other lessens both works. Just as the works of Joyce are still studied in university classes, so too is Homer. As of recording, Christopher Nolan's adaptation of The Odyssey is one of the most anticipated films of the year, and is often the case, and especially in popular media. Allusions test cultural literacy not just to their authors, but of the medium and their audiences as well, vitalizing and revitalizing works cited even through criticism or parody. Watchmen was initially conceived as a pitch for the Archie/MLJ characters titled Who Killed the Shield, whereby the surviving Mighty Crusaders characters would have to solve a murder mystery surrounding their fallen comrade. DC had at the time licensed the characters specifically for younger and middle grade readers in mind, so the pitch was rejected. Moore would recycle his idea to suit the Charlton action hero characters that had been acquired by DC, and submitted Who Killed Peacemaker to DC editor and former Charlton editor Dick Giordano. Giordano liked the pitch, but was again hesitant to give Moore the green light, as the story would leave DC's newly acquired properties, as Moore puts it, either dead or dysfunctional. Giordano instead suggested Moore invent original characters instead of the previously established ones for the story. Moore and artist Dave Gibbons would use both the Archie and Charlton characters as templates for their creations before further fleshing them out. The Shield/Peacemaker became the comedian, whose death becomes the core by which the plot unfurls. Charlton's Steve Ditko creations Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, and The Question became Dr. Manhattan, Night Owl, and Rorschach, respectively. Elements of fellow Ditko creation Nightshade were merged with Golden Age Cheesecake Good Girls, The Phantom Lady, and Black Canary to inspire Silk Spectre. Much of the Golden Age Minutemen characters take influence from the Mighty Crusaders, as well as other oft-forgotten Golden Age characters. Finally, the book's secret antagonist, Ozymandias, would be derived from Pete Morrissey's Tibetan Buddhist hero, Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. It goes without saying, but Watchmen became a huge success, also cementing its place in the conversation of the literary canon. Despite Moore's intentions to leave his characters dead or dysfunctional, DC and parent company Warner Bros. Have done their best to keep their relevance in pop culture. Both the brand and tone of Watchmen have been used by the company in order to maintain their trademark, admittedly to mixed results. For every Damon Lindelof HBO show, there's a dozen officially licensed Rorschach toasters. What has been more successful, however, have been the reimaginings of the Charlton archetypes, which inspired Moore and Gibbons in the first place. Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cowan's Question serves as much as a response to Watchmen as it is a retooling of Ditko's creation. Blue Beetle has remained a DC staple, going so far as to having a major Hollywood adaptation. Peacemaker has had, at the time of recording, 2 hit seasons of television. A similar case can be made for today's subject. Whereas the other Charlton characters were bought outright by DC, Peter Cannon's rights actually reverted to his original creator. In 2012, Dynamite Comics would license the character for a brief 10-issue series conceived by Alex Ross. In 2019, video game journalist and X-Men, Young Avengers, and Wicked and Divine writer Kieron Gillen was approached to give his own take on the character. Gillen has described that period as a time of frustration, having grown bored of writing traditional superheroes. This bad mood parallels Moore's own experience prior to writing Watchmen, but more on that on another time. Gillen took a holistic approach to the character, melding elements from the original Morrissey run, Moore's Ozymandias, the brief Mike Collins DC version, with allusions to the larger superhero post-MCU homogeneity and Eddie Campbell's semi-autobiographical comics. It was Gillen's attempt to create a large-scale meta-comic in the vein of Watchmen or Kingdom Come, but from a modern perspective. Gillen was paired with artist Caspar Wijngaard to bring his vision to life. 2019's Peter Cannon Thunderbolt opens 35 minutes in the future, as an alien invasion suspiciously similar to that of the end of Watchmen is in full force. Reluctantly, Cannon joins a quintet of other heroes to end the invasion and apprehend the responsible party, an alternate version of Peter Cannon. Using a cosmic meditative technique known as formalism, the team travels to an alternate universe to confront the evil Cannon, only to be systematically dismantled. The surviving Thunderbolt escapes to a mundane, black and white dimension, where after a brief digression, he returns to confront his evil duplicate. Peter Cannon Thunderbolt, Watch, while not a major seller on its initial release, was a critical darling among web commentators. AIPT gave the book a perfect score, citing Thunderbolt uses its ideas and techniques to craft its own narrative that is meta, potent, and trippy. Emma Snape, for Woman Right About Comics, notes how Gillen and Wijngaard try to surpass the legacy of Thunderbolt's progeny, stating, "It's galvanizing. It's been 3 decades of comics that have all been trying to live in Watchmen's shadow, reselling the same crossovers and invasion stories because they sell predictably." Cannon learns one overarching lesson in this book. You never get better if you never try to change. Does Peter Cannon Thunderbolt's reputation truly live up to or surpass Watchmen's legacy? Is it a transformative work in the spirit of Moore, Gibbons, and Joyce? Or is it more an homage or copycat? Is there still value in these antiquated archetypes? Where does Peter Cannon fit in the post-Watchmen canon? All these people that you mentioned, yes, I know them, they're quite lame. I had to rearrange their faces and give them all another name. Bob Dylan. Diane, what do we think about Peter Cannon Thunderbolt?
What part do you want me to talk about first?
I don't know. Let's start formally. How about that? Formalistically, what do we think about it?
Yes, let's talk about the form, as such a thing seems to be very important. You know what I think about the 9-panel grid.
It's really good!
And look, I appreciate that this is a comic that is using the 9-panel grid both as like a plot element and also attempting to like expand on the 9-panel grid to like make it kind of cool and interesting. I can appreciate those, and I can appreciate the effort, and I can appreciate the idea. Still don't like how it looks. I like it better in the black and white portions. They feel less sterile, but like there's some pages like close to the start, there is a page. Let me just get to it if it wants to load. There's like a page where like Peter is talking to his bro and they're just like chatting, and like the page just feels so empty and boring, and I don't know if that's specifically just like the layout of those panels or if that's just how the 9-panel grid just is, but like it's not that nice to look at. Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of how this book uses the 9-panel grid, but especially because I did all the homework that Gillen recommended you do in the like notes in the back, and also he did a series of articles for Bleeding Cool, which were like full commentary breakdowns of every issue, where he describes literally every panel. Like he describes everything that's going on in every panel, which gave me a better understanding of this and appreciation. So in the first issue, you'll notice while it does adhere to the grid, a lot of it is splash pages and splash panels. And this is supposed to be a reference to like early 2000s up until like 2010, like widescreen epic superhero comics like The Ultimates or The Authority, which were all kind of reinterpreting the superhero as real world thing that Moore and Gibbons did. Now, of course, eventually it goes into the like a proper Watchmen style 9-panel grid layout before going into the black and white section, which again is a reference to Eddie Campbell's series Alec, The Years Have Pants, which also uses a 9-panel grid. And I appreciate that. I think my problem with it, though, is, and Wijngaard is a good artist. I think he's really good at drawing people, right? But he cheaps out on backgrounds.
So, like, as you mean, there's a lot of panels where there's just, like, not much for background. Like, it's just
gradients, like, right? Yeah.
A gradient. I don't hate that. Like, it's fine. It works. I don't think it usually works when it's a color comic.
Right.
So, like, if this was black and white, like, there's a lot of manga out there where there aren't a lot of backgrounds and a lot of panels. They just kind of have a gradient or, like, a texture in the background. And those never look as empty to me as when it's in color and it's like a color gradient or just a solid color. I don't know why. Maybe it's the lack of texture or something, but it just never translates as well, I think, when it's in color. And so, like, the concept of not having backgrounds or being slightly lazy with backgrounds doesn't bother me. I am usually more of a focus on the human, or, like, the characters and, like, the way that the form is drawn anyways. I would say, yeah, he's really good at drawing muscles and stuff and, like, the bodies. Not so much the faces. Faces are kind of meh, kind of mid to me. Yeah. It does that thing, and this is one of the reasons that, like, just in general, superhero comics, or like this style of Western comics, I don't really like. I've definitely mentioned this before in one of the episodes, but it's like, you don't get much from the eyes. Like, so many superhero costumes, like even like when Peter Cannon is in his little superhero outfit, sometimes you can't like see his eyes. They're just like a little white area. Like, you know, like in Batman. Not to be cliche, but the eyes are the window to the soul. If you're not really giving much in terms of the characterization in the face and the eyes, it's like, well, this feels like a dead character to me. It's harder to connect to them. And that's just one of the artistic styles in this type of comic that bothers me, and it makes it more difficult for me to like connect to these characters on a human level, because it's like their faces are just like blocks. I don't feel the humanity in them. Muscles are good though.
That's interesting. I hadn't considered that you weren't a fan of the white eyes, which, I don't know. In my superhero comics, if you've got like a mask, I prefer the white eyes. I prefer the simplicity of that.
Yes.
That being said, I do agree. He doesn't, I don't know, some of these facial expressions are okay, especially in the evil Peter Cannon. I find there's some emotionality there, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Especially when half the cast wears like a face mask.
Yeah. And I'm like, and that doesn't really bother me. It's like, sure, if you have a character who's just wearing kind of like a hazmat suit the entire time, and it fits the character, fine. But if I can see the human's face, and the face is giving me nothing, might as well just slap a helmet on them too. But yeah. But art-wise, I don't have too much to complain about after I just went on that tirade, but whatever. I do like the way that evil Peter Cannon's, his little hideout is colored with like the kind of like the opalescent gradients. That's pretty. I like that.
Yeah, I would have to say the coloring's pretty good.
Yeah, it gives like an ethereal, otherworldly kind of feel, because it is. And is it like a fancy glass dome with like vegetation inside when it's like cold and snowy on the outside? I think I've seen that before. I wonder what that's a reference to.
What are they referencing?
Oh, I don't know.
All the clockwork around? Weird.
Yeah, bro's got a literal, his forehead thing, you know?
Yeah, he's got a cog with like a dot in the center. Yeah, I wonder what that's a reference to.
Slightly similar.
Did you notice how the lettering changes?
In the different, like, when they go to the, like, the black and white, in the black and white time, everyone talks differently except for Peter, because he's from his time, and he talks in the same way that he does. There's, like, a little bit where it goes into old-fashioned-y style, and of course, the lettering and the bubbles are slightly different, but does the lettering change within, like, the quote-unquote normal timeline?
I think there is a change between the, like, superhero Peter Cannon's lettering is different than, like, evil I think the character is supposed to just be called Thunderbolt, the evil Peter Cannon's lettering, because I think his bubbles and his letters are supposed to look like Watchmen, and to me they look like Watchmen, but I'm not a professional letterer, but there is a slight difference.
Gonna go grab my Watchmen comics.
And then, of course, the character Nucleon's lettering is in a greener inner circle inside of a speech bubble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, look at that. So, yeah, all the people from normal Peter Cannon timeline, their bubbles are, like, circular. And then Thunderbolt, his are kind of, like, slightly crunchy on the outside. You know, it makes it look more like it's hand-drawn.
Hand-drawn, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Let me compare the... It does look like it's a slightly different typeface, yeah. Yeah, Peter Thunderbolt, it does look quite similar to... Yeah, it looks similar to Watchmen. Yeah, it's definitely a different typeface than the normal world characters are talking in. Cool. Huh. I didn't quite notice that. That's very fun. I like that.
It's stuff like that I love about this book, when it is all the formal elements.
Yeah.
How do we feel about, like, writing and characterization? Do you like any of these characters? Do you get the reference? Do you get it? Do you get the references?
Oh yeah, I get it. Me currently looking at the page where, what's the guy's name? His name's The Test. Gets exploded into a Rorschach painting of blood on the wall. Oh, I get it. Yeah, okay, so like, a lot of the characters, it was like, I'm looking at them like, oh, I get it. I see what that's a reference to. Ah. None of them really talk like real people.
No, they don't. They straight up don't.
I freaking hate the way that Peter Cannon talks. He talks so much like a guy who is just like, like the kind of person who's like, someone who thinks they're really smart, thinks that they sound like.
He is kind of detestable, and I think Gillen wants that to be the point. Like, he wants the main character to actually go through an arc, which I appreciate. I don't know if he actually does, but...
Nah. Yeah. Yeah, he's not like he's only, oh yes, I'm smarter than everyone, and for that reason, I am pretty much unfazed by the world ending. Let me go solve this problem. It's like, okay, tell me why I'm supposed to care.
I also don't quite understand why going to the Alec black and white universe, why that would, like, what revelation does he actually have? I don't quite understand that. Maybe I didn't read enough into it, but like, why is that the Eureka Epiphany moment of, oh, I know how to fix the problem now? Is it just because he got to hang out with, like, quote-unquote regular people? Like, I don't...
I was going to say it was something similar to that, because, like, the black and white... So when I was reading it, I didn't know what specifically was being referenced in the black and white portion. But in my mind, it was like, this is referencing something that's more like... something more indie. Something more focused on the interactions between just normal human characters. And so, like, I was like, I guess maybe being in that situation, it gave him more of, like, that humanity that he seemed to be lacking. Yeah, I didn't know exactly what it was referencing. Like, what comic specifically it was referencing. But I was like, yeah, you just, like, the normal people. And they get to, like, I mean, they don't really spend that much time talking. But it's only 5 volumes? Or 6 issues? 5 issues?
5 issues,
not that much
yeah.
time. Yeah, there's not that much time to really go into things.
It's curious. Like, and again, the other thing is, like, I do get, some of these are supposed to be based on real people, like, in the black and white sequences. Like, the Doctor, for instance, that's supposed to be Alan Moore. Hence why he kind of talks like Rorschach, and he mentions a crime. What's the case called? He talks about it by name.
The Kitty Genovese or something, whatever it
right,
was.
Which is a famous case, and it gets referenced in the Watchmen back matter as what inspires Rorschach to become a superhero. And, like, again, it gets subverted because Peter Cannon mentions, like, the real story, which is that people did actually call for... It wasn't a case of nobody did anything and watched, and, like, humanity is evil. Like, people did call for help. Like, it's not as black and white as he says. But, like, again, I don't know. That doesn't cause him a eureka moment at all. Like, I don't quite... Why is he talking with Alan Moore other than, oh, wouldn't it be weird if a comic character talked to their creator?
I mean, I'm reading this one page, and it be all like, okay, here's what it says. This is during the black and white part, like 2 pages before he leaves. It says, when Peter Cannon arrived here, he thought that these people were less than him, smaller. Pete is 40, like Cannon, but Cannon is Hollywood 40, and Pete is Northampton 40. But Pete is real in a way Cannon isn't. This is real in a way which Cannon isn't. And Cannon realized the horrible truth. The feeling he was trying to place earlier? Envy. So I guess it maybe is kind of like this is like humanity and like normal people, and actually kind of being normal is like something to envy. I do not know how that makes him. Oh, maybe it's like he felt this feeling and had a desire to change and like get better, and then he was like, oh, the Thunderbolt version is not gonna want to change or get better, so he's gonna lose.
I guess.
I don't know. Maybe? I don't know.
Or that maybe he's realized that the Thunderbolt version, like, isn't, because he's not even real. Like, there's no one this evil ever to have ever, well, not yet anyway, no one this evil in the real world, and therefore he can't actually exist, and that's what makes him disappear through formalism or whatever. I don't know. It's curious. Like, I get what Gillen is sort of trying to say, but at the same time, he doesn't have I don't think he has enough space to say what he's trying to say.
Yeah. But, like, I mean, personally, I'm not gonna knock the story for that, and for there being things that I don't really get, or, like, maybe they didn't have enough time to flesh it out, or how did he actually win, how exactly does his formalism work, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, you get the vibe. You get the vibe of what's happening, and I guess that's kind of what matters.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. That is, like, most of good comics, is it's more of a vibe thing than actual plot or narrative.
Yeah. Like, sure, there was times where I'm like, I wonder, like, does this work? Is this really working? There's no point in time where I'm like, this isn't working. This doesn't make sense. I am actively lost. So it never crossed over to that threshold. So that's good. That's 1 point for the comic.
Great. It's not bad.
Yeah. The story is not so muddled and or rushed that I actively was like, I have no idea what is happening. It was just this little bit of, maybe I'm not thinking hard enough to actually entirely understand this one plot element. Oh well.
How do we feel about, like, using superheroes to try and tell larger, headier narratives, or try to explain headier themes? Like, do any of these characters sort of fit that? I guess we kind of touched on that with Peter Cannon, but, like, do we feel anything about the larger cast? Do we like any of these people? Are we interested in reading more Peter Cannon, I guess is my question.
To the first part of what you said there, do you think this is trying to touch onto anything bigger than just being a self-contained superhero story?
Kind of. Like, having your main superhero be in a gay relationship is, like, even in 2019, even in 2026, that's, like, still hard to do, especially with, like, corporate owned characters. So, like, I think that is something to be appreciated.
Yes, the very fleshed out relationship that definitely has chemistry and wasn't just dropped on the second last page to be like, oh, actually, we're in love. Kiss, kiss. It's okay. Congratulations.
It's certainly not subtle. I mean, and to Gillen's credit, Gillen is a queer creator, so, you know, he can do whatever he wants, but...
Yeah, fair enough. He gave his characters gay haircuts, but, like, if you want... Like, I will say that about any relationship you put in a comic, just make it believable, give the characters chemistry, and don't just make them kiss on the second last page to be like, oh, look, there you have a relationship. Did you want to give any foreshadowing to that? Did you want to make them have chemistry? Maybe you could have if you made them talk like actual human beings. But anyways.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know.
Yeah, but then again, it's 5 issues. You don't have a lot of time to build things up, but you could have at least given them, like, there was a possibility you could have. When, at the very, near the start, where Peter Cannon is in his little downstairs library studying the scrolls, and his boy Taboo comes and is like, hey, I brought you a sandwich or whatever. They could have had, like, a little bit more chemistry there, instead of Taboo being like, wow, you must be really stressed. You said thank you. And all I can think is, bro, this guy doesn't say thank you for his sandwiches normally because he's not in a bad enough mood.
Because he's an asshole.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, fine, if your character's an asshole, that's fine, but you can't just be like, my character's an asshole, but also he has a hot boyfriend and they love each other. That's not compatible.
Also, all the other superheroes are kind of assholes, right? Like,
yeah.
What's he called? The Captain America Peacemaker guy.
Yeah, whatever he is. The embodiment of the whatever he says that he is.
He's, like, also an asshole. And the test is, like, so he's supposed to be the Rorschach of the group, even though he doesn't really look like Rorschach, although he does sometimes quote Rorschach. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to be like Lobo or Deadpool. He's supposed to be like all the edgy superhero characters that came after Rorschach. That's kind of his point. Mm-hmm. So he says goofy random things like Deadpool, and it's like, that's annoying. I don't really like this character.
Bro's like, never compromise, and then gets blown up, and it's like...
And then he gets blown up.
Wow, I wonder what this is a reference to.
Or he like spits out like raspberries from his mouth. It looks like blood initially, but he says it's like it's like, but why did you
Where
do
you
that?
get the raspberries? Yeah. I mean, personally, I like the random the American dude, whatever he is, the whatever. I don't know what his name is. Don't really care.
What's his name? Something Justice.
I think he's funny because he's like very
he
like
punches the bad guy in the face.
And then but also when they're traveling dimensions, he just curls up into a little ball.
Yeah, like you can't see anything beyond his America or whatever. Yeah. That is kind of interesting.
But I mean, like, to be fair, everyone else is unfazed. You have Peter Cannon, super smart man extraordinaire, insane bro making snow angels, the magic lady and the radioactive lady who just seem like way too cold and stoic to actually like bother, and then just like a guy in an Iron Man suit who I always forget that character existed. Literally never noticed him in panels.
Interesting. See, I totally forget about Baba Yaga, the magic lady with like that robot legs. And Gillen admits that's the weakest character in the book. Like, she has no discerning qualities. I don't understand her powers beyond she's like vaguely Russian and witchy.
Yeah. I didn't notice the robot legs until I went to the back and read about the characters, and I was like, didn't notice the robot legs. Oops. Because when they first introduced the characters, if they wanted us to know she had robot legs, why is she the one person standing behind someone else?
Behind someone? And also, why don't the robot legs come... Like, why was she designed with robot legs? That I don't understand. Especially. It
explains a little bit at the back.
It's to look like the Baba Yaga. I get, because the Baba Yaga has, like, chicken feet or whatever. But yeah.
But, like... I mean, it would have been kind of funny if she was the exact same character, but just straight up had chicken legs. I would have noticed that, probably. But, yeah. I mean, it's a short comic. There's not a lot of time to flesh out characters. None of them stand out very much. They're all more or less an archetype, which makes it easy to know what that character is going to do through the rest of the story because you don't have time to flesh them out. Crazy weird guy is going to do crazy weird things. Stern American man is going to punch someone. Super smart bro is gonna be a dick and be super smart, you know. And then there's other ones. They're fine. They work for the story. That's pretty much all I can say is they work for the story. Nothing about them makes me want to read or like know more about them.
Right.
But within this 5-issue series, this little short series, they work. It's well and self-contained, and I don't want for more. I think it works as is. And you could say, I don't want for more. That could either be a good thing, as in, it started, it ended, it did what it needed to do. That's good. But you could also say, it doesn't make me want more. Like, I don't want a sequel, so maybe the story and the characters weren't cool enough or interesting enough that I desire more. But you know what? Sometimes stories are like that, where it's just like, no, we wanted to make one thing, it's self-contained, and we're not going to water it down by making a bunch of sequels, even though those would sell.
Yeah, that's also what's curious, is that the book teases at bringing back all of those characters, right? In some of the last pages, it mentions how the bug guy, Pyrophorus, he's like uploaded his brain to an AI system, and like maybe they could just put it in some armor and then he'd be back. Mm-hmm. A coven will select the new Baba Yaga. Mm-hmm. There will be a new Supreme Justice just because it's like a title.
Yeah. The
test's power is literally to respawn, like a video game. So like, it does hint at like, there could be more of this, but also I don't think Gillen wanted to make more of this, and there certainly wasn't a demand for more of, like, this wasn't a huge seller, even though it was critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious about that, is like, why does Gillen feel a need to leave the door open?
I don't think that was leaving the door open. I read that, like, oh, these characters could still exist, kind of more as, oh, don't worry, we won in a way where no one actually had to perish, exactly. Like
we just wanted a happy ending?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not exactly happy ending, but like, one way you could read it as like, oh, nothing really matters, nothing really actually changed. Or it could be like a little bit hopeful as, we can rebuild, we do have a future, we can do this kind of thing. None of it was like, oh, we'll put the team back together and then we're going to go on another adventure. It's that we can once again have these people and they can continue to do stuff. It's not a story that is going to be told for people to consume, but people, like, as the people are reading this conclusion, they know that life will go on. There's still hope. There's still stories that will happen.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thinking about that now, it's like, is the work cyclical then? Like, is it almost like the end could lead back into the beginning, like you could just read it over and over again?
I mean, yeah, there could be another, eventually there, in another dimension, there could be another evil Peter Cannon Thunderbolt man who will once again run into this situation and try to do it again. And then when that happens, this Peter Cannon will be like, well, now I know how to do a couple more things. We'll do it again ad infinitum.
Then my other thought was, is it hopeful just to be an antithesis to Watchmen, where half the cast is, not even half the cast is dead, 2 of the cast is dead, half the cast leaves, and also there was almost an apocalypse, so we don't have to tell any more Watchmen story, right? Like,
but it's almost the opposite of Watchmen, because like the team crumbles. No one's really doing what they were doing anymore. Everyone's different. And here it's like, sure, most of the team died, but it's like, actually they can be revived.
But they're coming back.
Yeah, which is the exact opposite of Rorschach, because he's just a little short, angry dude who actually got exploded.
Who got exploded.
He does not have respawn powers.
Or the comedian who is street pizza, and presumably there will be no more comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the exact opposite, where it's like, in some ways, the actual formal outcome is worse, as in everybody died, but the conceptual outcome is better, because there's hope and everyone's going to come back. Interesting.
I hadn't considered that before reading this. That's something new to add. Wow. Gillen was right. This is a metacomic and it's as good as Watchmen.
Do you believe that?
Let's get into that question. Is this as good as Watchmen? Does this surpass Watchmen? Has this closed the door on Watchmen? Unfortunately, I think no to all of the answers. I think it's pretty good, but no.
And then there's the question I wrote down. Does it have merit outside of Watchmen?
Yeah, I was considering that too.
Yeah.
Tricky.
So, we'll start with, is this better than Watchmen? No. I don't like the art as much. The story is not, I mean, obviously it's shorter. If this was as long as Watchmen, would it be as good of a story? I don't know, maybe, but like, wow, does this have characters I care about less than in Watchmen? I guess. Congrats. I mean, it's hard to be like, hey, is this thing as better or as good as one of the things that are lauded as being one of the best ever? Yeah, no, it definitely isn't. Oh, also a thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to say after your intro. Can you imagine how different of a world of comics things would be if Watchmen had actually been a middle grade book?
Yeah, I wonder what would happen if Moore had just been able to use the characters that he wanted to use. For one thing, it would have been easier to adapt. Like, there would have been not Watchmen, but like an MLJ cartoon, I imagine. Because Moore was such a popular writer, right? Like, everything he touched was on fire at the time. Mm-hmm. So there's no way it wouldn't have sprung out into all these different media. There would have been action figures immediately, right? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if it would have been as critically received. It probably would have been as popular, but I don't know if it would have been as critically received.
Yeah. Would any of the comics that you will be talking about in this season have existed?
Presumably no.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, and what comics would have taken their place? Would the explosion of middle grade comic books happened sooner? That would be interesting. What would have been the next? Would it taken of the place of Bone or something, right? Yeah.
What happens to Raina Telgemeier in that world? That's an interesting question.
Maybe it's like the cycle, by now the next big thing would have happened. Because I think we're still very much in the explosion and boom of middle grade comics.
Yeah, it should have happened sooner. I do have to say, it is kind of sad that superhero comics became comics for 30-year-olds, which became comics for 50-year-olds, which is now comics for 60-year-olds.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of pushback against that, I guess, but...
Yeah. Well, I guess you'll just have to make your own change to the comic world.
True.
Okay, what was the other questions you asked about how this works with Watchmen? Is it better? No.
Is it better? Does it surpass? Like, should this be considered in the same category of good comics as Watchmen? Right? There was a whole conversation when the movie came out, DC did a whole media push of, after Watchmen, what's next? What should you actually read? If you liked Watchmen, what should you read beyond Watchmen that is like Watchmen, that changed the industry or the medium like Watchmen did?
Mm-hmm.
And that included other Alan Moore books, and included a variety of Vertigo, adult reader material. Does this belong in that kind of area? Does this stand on its own? No, you don't think so?
No. I think this is a short, concise superhero story that really likes to reference Watchmen. I don't think there's anything super that stands out or that makes me think, wow, this is really changing the canon of comics. But yeah.
I suppose. I don't know. When it references Alec, that is kind of an interesting turn break moment. I don't know if it is as good as anything in Watchmen is, but it's interesting.
I really do think what is holding it back in my mind. So I'm like, why do I not think this is great? I just think it's good. I really do think that formally it's not interesting enough. Like, the art does not make me think that this is something different than the norm. Yeah. Like, it does do some cool things in parts, but as a whole, not enough is done to make it stand out from the rest. Which is like, I think that's slightly important because they really do like to talk about formalism a lot in here, so I will be formalistic about it.
It does just look like, it doesn't look like the superhero books of 2019, I'll say that much, but it does look like a superhero book, and I think that is what's hurting it, right?
Mm-hmm. And for my question that I pose, do you think it has merit outside of Watchmen?
Unfortunately, we live in a world where I've read Watchmen every year that I've been alive since I read it the first time, so I can't tell you what I would think if I read this without reading Watchmen first.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it was not a major seller maybe tells us the answer to that. I think the fact that it has only been brought up in discussion, like Watchmen is referenced in every review I read of this book, right? Or listened to, for that matter.
Yeah.
Or interview with Gillen.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, no, obviously, right? Like, you can only describe this book while simultaneously describing Watchmen. There's no other way to describe this book.
Yeah. When I was reading it, I was like, okay, wow, this is very much like Watchmen. And then the next time I read it, I was like, what if, how do these scenes and stuff come across if I had not read Watchmen? We'll take, for example, the scene where the test gets exploded into a bloody Rorschach ink blot test on the wall behind him. When I look at that, having read Watchmen, and I'm like, oh, that's a reference to Watchmen. If I was reading that and I hadn't read Watchmen, I would have been like, oh, they just exploded a guy. That's crazy. I honestly think that if you had not read Watchmen, this comic might be cooler. Because since it is cribbing a lot of things from a very good comic, if you did not know what that very good comic was and you thought all those ideas were original, you might be like, whoa, they doing some sick things here. That's kind of cool. When you read this having read Watchmen, you're like, are all the good ideas that they have just reheated nachos from Watchmen?
Ooh. There's a couple, reading the big fight between Evil Thunderbolt and the team, this team that isn't named. There's a couple cool things. Like, there's a bit where Baba Yaga is, shooting energy skulls at Thunderbolt, and the Evil Thunderbolt blocks it by having an empty panel between the two of them, as if her magic just never happened. That's kind of interesting. Nucleon getting killed 10 minutes into the future is interesting. That's something that wasn't in Watchmen. That's kind of neat and sad. But then there's stuff like, again, he just fills Phosphorus's suit with bugs, and it's like, well, how did you do that though? Like, what? Yeah,
was that an illusion? Were those real bugs?
How does that have to do with comics as a medium? I don't understand. Besides the fact that he's a bug guy.
Yeah.
Or he just tears Supreme Justice's head off, which is Yeah, that's like gory, and that would be in like a mature post-Watchmen book, like Crossed or something. But like, okay, you tore a guy's head off. That's cool. He throws good Peter Cannon out a window, and it's just like a trace of when Comedian gets thrown out his window. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, to me, like, I struggle seeing art for art's sake is not a bad thing. Writing a comic because you want to write a comic and you want to tell a story, that is all the reason you need to write a comic. So I will never knock this comic's existence for, like, just the fact that it exists. Some people wanted to make a story, they made a story, they made art. Great. But it having, I don't want to say artistic merit, but like merit within the canon of comics outside of Watchmen, I don't really think it does, because of how heavily it leans on Watchmen as source material. It's almost, well, I find it impossible to unlink it from Watchmen as someone who has read Watchmen. If you hadn't read Watchmen, this would be a very different experience, and you might be like, yeah, no, this is super fun. It comes up with some great ideas, super unique ideas I've never seen in comics before. And then my next question would be, have you ever read a comic before? Have you read Watchmen? Or have you read a comic before? Because sometimes you do meet a person like that who's like, wow, I read a graphic novel for the first time, and I was blown away by the things it did. And it's like, yes, you were blown away by the medium of comics because you've never read a comic before. That is very cool. You should go read more comics now.
True.
Yeah. So
now I'm imagining a nightmare world where this is someone's first comic, and I guess it would be fine, but like, I don't know. I have problems with people who only read Watchmen as the only comic they've ever read, and it's like, no, you started wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think that's sad if like someone reads one comic and they're like, yeah, that's it. It's like, no, you read a comic. Now you can read other ones. Now you know how to read a comic. You should expand. And like, I do know some people who have read one comic and they thought it was cool. And I was like, great. You should start reading other comics now. Please don't let Ducks be the only comic you've ever read.
Or Mouse, right? Like, and Mouse is great. Mouse is a perfect comic for somebody to read first, but like, Mouse isn't the only... I think so. Mouse is really important. Let's not... This is not a Mouse podcast yet.
Yes. Yeah. Mouse is... Sure, whatever.
Mouse is really important. But you should also read, other things. Including different... Like, you shouldn't just read autobio comics. You should read fiction. You should read manga. You should read graphic novels for kids. You should read ongoing comics for adults that are kind of not mainstream, indie, but like, bigger publisher, bigger production value, right? Like, you should read different things. Just like how you should read different actual books, or read, go to an art gallery and look at all of the things there, not just the paintings.
Yeah. Reading Watchmen is the only comic ever that you've ever read is like the equivalent of the only book you ever read is like a self-help book on how to become rich. It's like, no.
I guess. How about
you expand, please.
I guess it's more, well, I don't know. Honestly, it'd be like if you only ever read Ulysses, and it's like, okay, good job. You read this really challenging thing, but first off, did you actually get it? And also, you didn't read anything else? You didn't read, you didn't even look at the Odyssey beforehand, right? Like, that's what blows my mind for people who, like, only read Watchmen is it's like, you kind of need to, like, have read a superhero comic before reading Watchmen to, like, appreciate that this is not the norm, right? Like,
yeah. Or just a comic. Like, any other comic.
Yes, right? I don't know.
Because, like, I think, like, if you read one comic ever, like, there are some things in the comic language that is difficult to understand if you have not been versed in it enough.
Totally. There are people who are comics illiterate. People who are smart who are comics illiterate, right?
Yeah,
like,
and it's just because they don't have the experience. So, yeah. Go read more comics. Go read more things than just Watchmen.
We implore you. Read literally anything else.
I highly doubt that there's a person out there where this is the first comic they read.
I don't think so. I don't think...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because it is, as you said, it wasn't that popular, but it was highly acclaimed. Meaning the people that were acclaiming it were not people who are reading a comic for their first time.
No.
And yeah, no, I don't think there's many people out there who had read this and not read Watchmen.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. One thing I wanted to talk about is, tell me, how do you interpret the power of formalism in this comic and how it works?
Very curious. Now, I tried to look up if, like, there actually is a type of formalism in, like, Eastern mysticism or in Eastern religious practices, and I couldn't find anything. Because Peter Cannon is based on, like, a problematic, westernized... It's like Orientalism. It's like being wowed by the mysteries of the East, which is, like, not real, right? Like...
Yeah. I will say one of my favorite panels in this comic is just the test being like, how did a white dude in a fancy house end up with all this ancient knowledge of the Orient? And then there's a little TM after knowledge of the Orient. And then Tabu is there looking sad and he's like, it's a tragic story. And I'm like, that panel's so funny.
It's very funny.
It's like, oh yes, so tragic. This is rich. It's so tragic for the rich white guy that is appropriating some ancient Oriental culture. Haha, okay. Was that done on purpose? Please tell me it was.
It would have to be, right? Like,
yeah.
It's Gillen taking the piss, right? The original Peter Cannon origin, which I read before reading this, is that it's literally you've heard this story before. A white guy, a kid and his family are in the Tibetan mountains, and then his family died, so he's orphaned, so he's taken in by Buddhist monks, right? Like, problematic. It's been told a million times since the days of the pulps. I interpret his version of formalism as being able to warp reality. And because he's in a comic, that means being able to warp the structure and the form of comics. That's why people are able to change panels or go into different genres and stuff like that, right? It's also why when he's setting up the formalism, I don't know what you would call it, seance practice, when he's setting up his way to travel with his team, Taboo has to, like, write words on the ground, and it's, like, the title of the issue. But that's, like, they're warping reality in the same way that if you were to, like, practice magic with a K, you're supposed to, like, make symbols out of words, right? And then burn them. Like, that's the practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you call that? Ritual. Duh. It's a ritual. In the same way, yeah. And, like, is that a reference to Moore? And, like... Moore supposedly does his own black magic ritual practice. Like, I don't know. I guess a bunch of English comics writers do it, but I find that kind of interesting. I wish that was delved more on in the book rather than him just sort of hanging out with people in a bar in the black and white. I wish somebody actually asked him, like, well, how do you do it though?
I mean, I think I don't think we're supposed to know exactly how it works. As in, like, when he tells Thunderbolt, like, how he's able to travel dimensions, he just, like, whispers it to him, and we don't see any actual explanation of it. So it's never really actually completely explained. Is it possible that the creators of this comic don't exactly know how to explain it themselves? Very possible.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're like, oh, it's magic or some shit. Yeah, it'd just be like that. Yeah, I read it as formalism is bro just has the power of comics. Like the ancient scrolls he's looking at are just comics.
They're just comics. They're just the techniques. It's just it's Scott McCloud's understanding comics.
Or it's just like the ancient scrolls, you just someone wrote the story, but like in the past, so he's just like looking at the next page and is like...
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. What I think is kind of interesting is, do you know anything about formalism in terms of, like, art?
I couldn't tell you the definition. No.
Yeah, so, like, formalism, like, it's been a while since I took any art theory or history or anything, so I had to do a quick little lookup. But it's, like, kind of like the idea of formalism is, like, it's the focus on the form instead of the concept. So you could say in some ways it's the antithesis to conceptualism. So it's like what they're focusing on is purely like the shape and the color and the composition of a piece of art. And then like the contrast could be like conceptualism, where the important thing about the piece of art is the concept behind it, and the idea, and the physical form that it takes is less important.
So it's like more about how you practice the art versus how you feel about it, right? Am I getting that right?
It's more like, so a lot of like things that you could classify as formalist art, like it's not like formalism isn't exactly like an exact school like something like cubism is. It's more broad. But like one artist that people like to bring up when talking about formalism, you know, the guy that made like, they're just like a bunch of like primary color squares on a painting.
Yeah. What's his name? I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Pierre Mondrian. The one, and it's like the squares that are colorful. We're not talking about like the black square. We're talking about like...
No, it's the red. It's the red and the white and yellow, and usually there's like lines intersecting.
Yeah, and there's lines and stuff. So like that's one thing that people like to bring up in conversation with formalism, where it's specifically about the form of the art. Not exactly abstract, because there is abstract art that is formalist and there's abstract art that is conceptual. It's just like we are specific about colors and the composition and the lines. And if you take it to this extreme, you could in some ways, like in some lines of thought about formalism, it's that everything that is important to the painting, if it's, say we're talking about a painting, is on the canvas itself. There is no context that you need outside of this painting. So, for example, if you're looking at one of these paintings with the squares on it, everything you need to know to interpret the painting is on the canvas. There is no abstract idea outside of it. There is no political context that's influencing it or anything. Everything is about that canvas, and you can see it and you can interpret it that way. Which in my mind is very funny when we're reading the Peter Cannon story here, where no, it's almost the exact opposite.
Yes, it's all about emotionality and yeah.
You cannot read this. If you were to read this without any outside context, you are missing the entire point, because the entire point is the outside context of Watchmen.
Yeah, true.
I think that's kind of funny. I just did a little bit of research to remind myself what formalism was, and I'm like, wow, that's hilarious.
Do you think that was on purpose? Do you think Gillen had that at the back of his mind when he wrote this?
I don't know. I don't know his background. Did he go to art school? What kind of art school?
He's a writer by trade. He was writing video games, and he was doing like video game journalism for most of his early career, and music journalism. So like, I think he went to journalism school. I don't think that he is an artist per se.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, there is also a type of formalism for literature, which I did not look into because I didn't go to school for writing. I went to school for art, so I know the art things. But maybe I think it would be extra funny if it was on purpose, and I think it is also very funny if it wasn't on purpose. Either way, gives me a good chuckle. But yeah, so that's what was interesting me about the formalism part of it. I was like, you are using formalism of as your powers in a story that is far more conceptual than it is formalist.
That is not about formalism.
Yeah.
Which, like, is Watchmen's not even formalistic, also.
No.
Granted, it's not about formal, whatever.
I mean, if you are looking, like, there are comics, I guess, out there that are about, like, specifically the form more so than the story, I guess. But I don't think there's any comic out there that is in that one extreme definition of formalism where everything is on the page and you don't need any context. I personally don't even know if that's even possible, because everything exists within context. Like, can you really have something that you read the comic and you get everything about it?
I'm sure if I scratched my two brain cells together, I could maybe come up with a couple, but
maybe
they're rare and few between, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a fun little aside that I thought about when I was like, well, I might as well do some fine arts research on this. Maybe put my little degree to work. Your little degree. My little degree.
How do we feel about this as in the post-Watchmen canon? Does this even belong in this series? Is this a child of Watchmen?
I think in the most literal way it is.
Yeah.
It could not exist without Watchmen having existed before it.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue against that.
Yeah, this comic would not exist if Watchmen didn't exist.
What's interesting about that is that specifically uses a character that inspired Watchmen. It is like Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail. Like, you're using a character that inspired Watchmen to tell a story inspired by Watchmen. Like, this is where, in our discussion of Roboco, we talked about comics. This is where someone could make the argument that comics about comics is maybe a bad idea. I don't know. I still got enjoyment out of this. I don't think this is a bad book by any means, but...
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think it's more interesting on a conceptual level than it is on a formal level, as in, like, how it is a story that is cribbing so heavily from Watchmen. I think, like, technically this story could exist with no Watchmen references. Like, you could have the story of a guy that has this formalism power and tries to fight a guy who's an alternate dimension version of him with a team of people. Thunderbolt didn't have to be in a glass greenhouse in the
snow, wearing purple robes.
Yeah. The test didn't have to explode into a Rorschach inkblot test. Every part of, like, the story could have been written with no references to Watchmen, and that's why I think it's kind of interesting, because it's like, what came first? The idea that we're going to make a comic that's about Watchmen, or we're going to make a comic where a guy has a formalism power and he's going to defeat his evil counterpart?
I don't know. Interesting that you say you could tell the story without Watchmen, but I can't imagine, like, what other reference would it be, right? Like,
does it have to have a reference?
Does it? Also, good question. I don't know. Like, it's so much a response to Watchmen. Like, could this be about a different Alan Moore character, right? Like, could this be about Swamp Thing or Top 10 or, I don't know, or V for Vendetta? Or could this be a completely different, like, I don't know. So much of comics is a reflection of Watchmen also, like...
But so many comics don't specifically have a guy quoting Rorschach and then getting exploded into a Rorschach inkblot test.
True, very true. But again, at the same time, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a writer working in comics today who wouldn't mention Watchmen in their favorite.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that is true, yeah. I guess most people just don't make it as obvious in their stories.
Or we're just so past the point, like, we're so far away from it, we can't tell what a pre- and post-Watchmen book looks like, right? Like, in the immediate aftermath of Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, there were so many gritty superheroes that fuck and die, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there were so many. And eventually, that just became the medium, kind of. And we've sort of gotten away from it, but even that is like... Even that's a reference to what... That's like how literary allusions work, right? Like, as soon as anyone makes a comparison in or outside of the work, it immediately becomes an allusion. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. But for something like this, do you think, with how much it references Watchmen and all that, do you think that's too much? Do you think that this would have more merit as art if it was less of a direct allusion to Watchmen? Do you think it's kind of cheap that they just kind of copied so many things from Watchmen? Or would you say, no, it's like a great artistic choice? What do you think?
I mean, I like it because of the that's why we're talking about it. I like it because of the Watchmen references.
Exactly.
Regardless of how organic they are or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of them are kind of mostly organic, right?
Yeah.
I'm even putting caveats on those. But, like, I don't know. I was also one of those freaks in like middle school and high school who was like, I wouldn't mind a sequel to Watchmen. Like, I was like, why don't they make more Watchmen? So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who read Watchmen, they'd be like, hey, if there could just be, like, that much comic again, and it was, like, as good as, and as in character, and it wasn't a shitty sequel. I mean, that's how all sequels are. Like, everybody who likes something, they would love a sequel of it, as long as it's good.
Right.
And it doesn't ruin it. Yeah.
It's the saying goes, the audience doesn't know what they want until they get it, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, that's how most things are. I mean, most people, if they're reading something that they like, they don't want it to end. They want more of the thing they like. We all greedy like that. But then as soon as it gets to be like a shitty watered down sequel version, most people are like, why did they make a sequel to Naruto? Why did they do that? Yeah. So some things should just, like, you know, end when they're supposed to end. But, like, does anyone really know how to do that? No.
Yeah.
No. Because if you keep making stuff, you get more money.
Yeah, nobody has that kind of self-control.
No.
Other than Alan Moore.
Yeah, but then he was like, I'm not making a sequel, and then the rest of the world was like,
but we will.
We will. And thus, Peter Cannon.
Yeah.
I guess, like, so, do you like this story? Do you like this one?
I like it. I probably read this. I remember when it was getting all the hype, and I remember kind of just reading like previews of it and stuff and being disappointed because I thought that the art was done by Chip Zdarsky. Somewhere I read a solicitation where Chip Zdarsky was attached as an artist, and he did a cover for the work. But no, it's a different guy. And that disappointed me. The lack of backgrounds and instead use of gradients disappointed me. I'm not a huge fan of Dynamite as a publisher. I find that, like, at least in the early days, they used to just chalk their books full of ads. There would be, like, maybe 12 pages of story, and then the rest would be ads, and that used to annoy the hell out of me. But, you know, having read it, I don't mind it. I try and track down the back issues. I have 2 of them, even though I couldn't find them before we started recording. I think it's like a decent looking book. And again, I love anything that's about Watchmen. I've got a brainworm in my head, and he wants to read about Watchmen.
Diane is trying to talk about Baki in every episode, and Jack is trying to talk about Watchmen in every episode. That's the show. That's pretty much the show. But yeah, I mean, I like this well enough. It is, of all the ones that we've done, of like all the comics that you've brought for our episodes, it's definitely goes into the I enjoyed this more than I disliked it side, which is good, despite it being a full color superhero comic. So that's a huge win for this comic. Good for it.
What a ringing endorsement.
Yeah. I liked it more than I didn't like it. But, like, yeah, it was a good enough self-contained story. I liked that it actually had an end. Yeah. It just was, like, not great, but it was good.
I think that's its main detractor, is that it aims to be one of the great superhero comics, and it is. It's not. It's pretty good, but it's not what it's trying to be.
I mean, can an imitation ever be as good as the original?
Sometimes. I think sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it can get pretty close.
I can't wait until you bring a comic that is better than Watchmen in this season.
We'll see if we get better than Watchmen. There's maybe one. Maybe
cool,
one.
I can't wait.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Cool, I can't wait. I can't wait to guess which one that is. Every week I'm gonna be every episode I'm gonna be reading and being like, is this the one? Is this the good one?
Is
Jack gonna come over here and freaking burn my house down if I say it's actually really shitty?
No. That's not this show. Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe when we do the Watchmen episode, you'll have some hot take that will, like, friends off.
You know I have hot takes about Watchmen.
Yeah, but those are funny. not emotionally damaging.
Good to know that my hot takes about Watchmen are not bad enough that you have canceled the podcast.
At least not yet. I don't know. Do we have any ending thoughts about this? I can't believe that our consensus is it's good, it's not great, and therefore it's not like Watchmen, but it is about Watchmen, so it's kind of like Watchmen.
Yeah, I'm just like, it was enjoyable. It was an enjoyable read. I didn't hate myself. I didn't think it was so ugly that I wanted to stop reading it. Yeah, I'm out. I do have one important thing to say. The part about reading this that actually made me almost cry laughing. It was in the back somewhere when it was talking about the characters' designs and where they were and stuff. And then for Taboo, it just says, Kieron said, "Do you know Dream Daddy?" Caspar said, "Yes." The rest is history. I was crying.
That sucks so bad.
That's so funny. Everybody has like, oh, these are the things that blah, blah, blah. And they're like, Yeah, anyways, Dream Daddy, that game? Yeah, we just gonna make a character look like that, and I'm
We're
like,
just gonna make a hot dad.
I'm sobbing because it's so accurate.
Is it? He doesn't have a dad bod. Taboo's not like a dad. I don't know.
Okay,
Whatever.
but like
I have no opinion.
There are a lot. Okay, yes, in Dream Daddy there are guys that have a dad bod, but most of them are just like super hot. I'm pretty sure one of them's like a fucking vampire. So like, is Dream Daddy, the dating dad simulator game, realistic? No. But does Taboo look exactly like he would be in that game? Yes.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Congrats to them. Look at them. They're cribbing from something that more than just Watchmen.
Other than Watchmen. Yeah.
That's my final thought. You got
Great.
anything else?
No, let's end it there. That's good. Thanks for listening. You can find me, Jack Stewartson, at Phantom Power Press, spelt with an F, on Blue Sky and Pink Sky.
And you can find me, Diane, on Instagram at @1littlegremlin. That's 1_little_gremlin.
You can follow the show on Blue Sky at panelpalspodcast. All of our links are in the show notes. If you like the show, please rate and review on your podcast provider of choice. Panel Pals is a Jack Stewartson, Diane Hitchings co-production with editing by Jack Stewartson. Our musical theme is found by Stemchamp. Look at that, off the dome.
Woohoo! Oh, amazing. Amazing.